Dare to be Bold is brought to you by J.Forks Designs lifestyle accessory brand. Here at J.Forks Designs, Dare to be Bold is more than our motto, it's our way of life. For our podcast series, we are interviewing people who live boldly. I'm the host, Casey Forks. Today, we got to sit down with Mario Guajardo. After his journey into the world of textiles and fashion, Mario Guajardo founded Richter Goods in 2011 to create clothing for individuals who dress beyond the trends, but still hold an appreciation for the American standard of quality. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Dare to be Bold by J.Forks Designs. My name is Casey. I am here today with Mario. We are at Richter Goods in downtown San Antonio off Broadway. Thank you so much, Mario, for having us.
Well, thank you for having me.
This is an incredible shop. I mean, amazing. Like, you walk in here and it's just fantastic. I know you guys can't see it, so we'll have to show you pictures or you can imagine. Tell us a little bit about your shop here. What do you guys do?
Well, we are the shirting company. We make beautiful shirts for men and women, and we make everything in-house.
So what is special about the shirts and the clothing that you create here?
Well, to start, it's made here. It only 3% of the garments that we consume are made in the U.S.
Which is amazing.
Today, yeah.
Do you even know of other clothing companies around or in the area?
Not in San Antonio, and made here. Really, there are not that many options. Yeah.
So this is your baby, right? This is all you.
Yes, this is my baby. Working this project for over a decade, and from the first sewing machine, from the first patterns.
Let's go back a little bit. What brought you here? What brought you into this industry? Just sort of tell us about your background. How did this all start for you?
Well, I worked for different companies over the years. I always wanted to have my own brand, to make my own clothing, but it's a very, I want to use the word complex. There are a lot of moving parts to making your own products, from being consistent, doing it right, doing a good product, to fitting, to the actual design, the consistency of the promotion, the campaign. It's a very, 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 very complex industry. So I worked for luxury brands for almost a decade, and before that I went to college for business, and I always wanted to do that. My father is an attorney, and he always got dressed, and I saw him getting ready, meeting clients, and that was a big part of what inspired me to make shirts.
You worked for other companies for
Correct.
a while. When did you decide, okay, you know what, it's time, I want to branch out on my own?
Well, I saved money for 10 years, and started buying sewing machines, and bought the first ones, renovated the first space, we've done, and quit my job and decided this was going to do.
Was it scary, quitting your job?
It was terrifying. I had a really good job, and it was terrifying.
What gave you the confidence and what made you just say, you know what, now's the time, I've got to do this?
Well, I think we are here for such a small time, and sometimes we deserve the opportunity to give ourselves that option, that space to be able to create from nothing. So for me, it was very special, important for me to do this.
And you felt like the reward that you could have was worth the risk that was involved in that?
Absolutely. I was talking to a good friend, and we're redefining the brand right now. We're relaunching our website, and we're going to be doing a lot of interesting things in terms of how we're selling our product, which I'm very excited. As we're exploring the pillars of the brand, one of the things that we understand is very important is it takes time to realize who you are and to be comfortable in your own skin. And when that happens, in the universe, something happens, and it's hard to explain. Where you're trying to discover who you are for 20 years, and then you are in a place that you don't care anymore. You become who you're supposed to be.
And some people, I think, never figure out who they're supposed to be. So when it does happen, I think you have to seize that and really go with it.
Absolutely. Picasso said, took me 20 years to paint like the masters, like the best painters in the world, the best artists. And it took me a lifetime to discover who I am.
Yeah.
So when he explored cubisms, he really was comfortable in his contribution, what he was creating from a different space.
You, I know, have got to be incredibly proud of what you've created here. Do you still feel like you can constantly improve upon and keep changing and evolving? Are there always things that you're looking at? Like you just said, you're redefining kind of your brand. Is it an evolving process constantly?
Absolutely, and that's a great question. You know, what makes a brand a brand? And you know, the number one thing that we oversee, because it's very easy to see an ad with a model and you fill the blanks, but what about time? What about that time that you really, there's a learning curve of becoming better, and it's also a very changing, rapidly changing industry. Retail today is it's in a very strange place. You know, companies that used to sign those 10-year leases, they're not doing that anymore. So big part of what we do with the clothing is creating ecosystems like the ones we have in our space, where we have those micro stores that they come and go, and some are bigger than others, but you know, they have a more genuine opportunity of connecting with consumers in a more natural way.
So, how long have you been at this location?
3 years.
Okay, and where were you prior to that?
This was there's interesting history, this building and the other one. This used to be a place called Frontier Inn, and it was one of the original gyms in Texas.
Oh,
It was
really?
like one of the first ventures for Mr. Horslacker.
Wow.
And there used to be a theme park in the back, and families you will come here, and
Wow.
it has changed quite a lot over
Yeah.
the years. And before we were in the 600 block just down the street, and it was a clothing factory from the 1930s.
Okay. Which is very cool. And
It was
yeah,
really
it's
cool
all right.
space. Really enjoy that space.
Are you happy here now?
Very happy. We have a community of micro stores. So we have today 12 stores that are consistent to what we do, anywhere from a leather company, barber shop, coffee shop, a vintage shop, and they are very consistent with what we do.
Which is very cool. It's a super neat location.
We're adding a few more.
Oh,
We
okay.
actually are looking into the second part, and then we're very excited about what.
Yeah,
what the future.
as we should be. Did you ever get to a point when you sort of started on your own, backtracking a little again, sorry, where you just felt it was so difficult or so tough that you thought, I don't know if I can keep doing this? Did you ever hit an obstacle like that?
Many times. Our first shirts were terrible, and the second ones were terrible, and it takes time. You know, it's a process. It's 5 years, what I like to call. And you know, we made our 10,000 hours. We became an expert, and today we're very, very consistent what we do. But you know, it happens all the time. You know, we have 12 mobile concepts here in our space. We didn't have one when we started. So from building a concept to making what we want to make in terms of the garments, or how we want to communicate our message, it's always full of it's always unexplored territory.
Yeah. And do you still find challenges that, you know, like as you said, this industry changes so much in retail and things. So do you find yourself having to just push through and continue on?
All the time. You have to have an internal fire to be able to wake up every morning and say, well, this is my job, this is what I do. Go to work. You know, it's you treat it with pretty much respect, and you put the hard work, and there's no magic formula. At the end of the day, you do it every day, and things start doing better.
So how about the reward for you? Is it worth all of this?
All the gold in the world it's so rewarding today to see the way the products are finished, and to see that we are in a place that we are doing private labels for other companies, or we have our own brand, or you know, right now we're about to bid for uniforms for some military contracts, so we're going to be looking at infantry blazers, and so we're very excited with how we evolve into understanding what the business is, to understanding on how important it is to keep things local. For me, that's a big commitment. a lot of people can say, well, I support everything that is local, or I live that life.
Yeah.
For me, it's extremely important to, beyond talking, making the products here and selling them at a competitive price point.
Right. And really living and practicing what you preach.
Correct.
I mean, very much so.
Correct.
Where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, the inspiration comes from many places. It comes from, the colors obviously comes from the palette that is relevant every year. Every year changes and evolves. The inspiration comes from what's trending, what's relevant, and a big part of what inspires us is where we live. We live in Texas, and we make beautiful Western shirts. So, I'll tell you a story that earlier this year I was in New York and I was meeting a good friend, which is a very big influencer in the men's fashion world, and we met on his office on 24th, and they handle fine Italian wear, and they have a beautiful studio. They are very well known in the industry, and we were talking about fashion and clothing, and he's pulling out herringbone that he found in Kyoto in Japan, and to make runs from this fabric was what they used to make American soldiers' uniforms in the 30s period.
Wow.
So he finds fabrics like that dead stock, and then he makes runs of shirts, and he is based in Milan, and we're talking about different things, and he asked us to at some point to help him with making some shirts for them, and at the time we were not ready. So going back to the conversation, another Italian friend walks in, and they introduce us, and they say, well, he's a real deal, he's making shirts in Texas, which really put a lot of things in their perspective, thinking about how the way the fashion world works, and how we take sometimes for granted something that is very special. We make beautiful Western shirts, and they often leave to Japan, or we ship to New York, or we ship to different parts of the country.
Yeah, and I imagine you're talking, and this was in Milan that you had this conversation,
My friend is from Milan.
Okay.
He has a company called Fortella, and he is in New York and Venice in California, in LA every other.
And how cool it is that you get to collaborate and talk with people from other places, like you said, but that you have such a legitimate company here, and such. That's amazing. You should be very proud of that.
Well, being in Texas is very special, and it's a big part of the inspiration for what we do every day.
If somebody were starting out on their own, because you've said a lot of really amazing things, if someone were starting out on their own and they wanted to begin their own business or start their own venture, what advice would you give to them?
Well, I learned this a long time ago. When you stop moving the legs, everything falls apart. So don't stop. And I know it sounds very simple. It's not. You're gonna hit a lot of walls, and if you don't stop, at the end something's gonna happen. So I think that being consistent, true to your principles, true to your idea, and don't stop.
And what about those mistakes and those small failures and those types of things and the obstacles that people will come across? How do you, because I think clearly you have a lot of drive within you, and you have continued and you've persevered, and so many of the people, everyone that we've talked to, they have that in common. What do you say though, because a lot of time people are so disheartened and discouraged by mistakes and by failure. How do you encourage someone to continue after those types of things happen?
Well, failure is part of the process. Failure is part of what will shape you into the human being that you're supposed to be, and that's a very personal journey for every person. If you are going to be an entrepreneur, you have to have that fire. If you don't have that internal fire, it's probably not a good idea to do that. But if you decide to become your own boss, or to explore things on your own, you just have to realize that things are going to move rapidly, and You are going to make mistakes. You cannot avoid that, and then you just have to embrace them and find the beauty in those mistakes in the darkest of the times, and something will happen at the end of the day. I think that the compilation of all this mistakes really form who you're supposed to be. Create that person, that special person.
I agree, and I love that. Is there anything else you would like to say, just in general, or advice, or anything like that you would tell people?
Well, it sounds very cliche, but support your local makers.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that is making things here, they believe that we need to have an ecosystem that supports or direct world. And if every country will do that, or every city will do that, we'll be in a better place. I mean, whether you have to ship thousands of products from the other side of the world, and in my mind, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. For people who are watching this, what is your website?
Our website is www.richtergoods, richtergoods.com.
Okay, great. And do you have social media people can follow you?
We do. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook,
Great.
please.
Okay, thank you so much,
Well,
Mario.
thank you so much.
This was great.
Thank you.
That was Mario Guajardo, the mind behind Richter Goods. For more information, you can visit the website at www.richtergoods.com, follow them on Instagram at Richter Goods, and on Facebook at Richter Goods. Our next podcast will be available on October 4th, and we are sitting down with Mike Kurth. Mike Kurth was one of the U.S. Army Rangers who fought in the Battle of Mogadishu, the horrific true story which inspired the movie Black Hawk Down. Dare to be Bold is a branded podcast from J.Forks Designs. This episode was produced by me, Casey Forks, Jenny Forks, and Courtney Cobb. Courtney Cobb mixed this episode. You can find Dare to be Bold on SoundCloud and iTunes, or watch on YouTube. Do us a favor and help spread the news about our show. You can also find us at jforksdesigns.com. That's JFORKSDESIGNS.com. I'm Casey Forks. Thanks for listening.